Hello, mysterious person behind the screen, and welcome to the new collection, the new room, the new base for this channel. So many of you will know that I've spoken about for a while on this channel that I was going to be redecorating my entire room from scratch. I have done that on this channel before, but really the last time I kind of did a big kind of collection overhaul, we really just repainted the room and left it there. This time, however, the room is completely different to what it once was. It's almost unrecognisable to what it's been for pretty much the entirety of this channel. And of course, I wanted to show you around the new kind of setup that I have of the room and the new way I've got of displaying my collection. It's not quite 100% finished. I mean, it is and it isn't. There's still stuff, there's still places I want to fill, still elements of the shelf I want to fill up, and still things that I'm like, oh, I haven't quite figured out a place for that yet. Like behind me, you may see the Spider-Man 2 poster, which I need to invest in like pitch hooks and get pictures up, like framed pictures. I kind of want to avoid posters, more like actual framed pictures, like that one is down there, so that needs to go up. And there's a few little things like that, but I thought I'll do it now because knowing me, I'm just going to put it off and off and off, and it's never going to get done. Plus, in the next week or so, I'm going to be picking up the Halloween decorations, and so the room's going to look completely different again. So I'm just going to take you on a little tour around the room, explain where things have gone, where things have changed, and just show you guys the setup going forward. So as you enter the room, I guess the first thing on your left, you'll see the record player, which is nice to kind of have a proper space for that now, because I got that for Christmas last year, and it's just kind of been sat wherever, so actually having a space for that now is really cool. And then of course on top, Chucky and Tiffany, because why not? They have to live somewhere. Directly above it, we have my Batman the Animated Series figure collection, and that is the only shelf that has carried over from my previous room, because it still fits with the aesthetic. We kind of went for very white, bright kind of colours this time, and grey all around. It still does kind of fit with that. It's the only part of the room that still has the wood kind of aesthetic from my last one. I really sound like I'm like some interior designer here. I'm really not. I just kind of picked what looked cool. But yeah, I thought that fit well still, and it fits all of my Batman the Animated Series and new Batman Adventures figures on there perfectly. And that was a real struggle because I was a bit like, I don't know where these are quite going to go. But that's all of them, and they fit on there absolutely perfectly. The only thing that's missing is the Batmobile, the big kind of chunky Batmobile, which I still need to find a home for. That is sort of one thing that has been a bit lost in this this kind of whole move, because I have to, I had to box up my entire collection and rebuild it and put it back up there. And that Batmobile, I'm still not 100% sure where it's going to go. But apart from that, that's all of them, and I'm really happy with how they look there. And then of course below the record player, we've got books and graphic novels and comics and various little pops and figures there. This is a really colourful shelf. I think it's kind of an odds and ends shelf, but I am very happy to finally have a place to store all of my graphic novels, because I always want to buy more than I have. You'll see the bottom of the shelf there is just kind of filled with like autobiographies and general books about movies and TV, but I've always wanted to buy more graphic novels. It has just been a space thing. Now I've kind of got that space and they look good there, so I'm happy with it. Then these three big display cabinets, maybe the kind of biggest new feature of this whole rebuild, and definitely what I wanted from this the most. Like, I was always desperate to have display cabinets to store the Doctor Who figures, because as much as I collect everything, and you'll see like the NECA horror figures later, the Doctor Who figures have been my longest, biggest collection. I've been collecting them since I was 5 years old, and I'm still buying new ones now. The B&M sets, just got those, a few weeks ago. So I wanted a place for them, because before they were kind of in cube shelves and they looked good, but the ones at the back you just couldn't see because the way the lighting was in the old room, it was just dark behind there, and a lot of the time I was like, I kind of feel like that's a bit of a waste, because there are really cool figures that are just hidden in the darkness behind there. Now with these display cabinets, everything can be seen and everything is visible. This is probably, like I said, the biggest feature of the room, and I am so over the moon with it. They're all the same cabinet, so I literally just ordered 3 of the same thing, and I'm really happy with it. It's very much inspired by what Batman March has done with his collection, because obviously he's almost like the godfather of Doctor Who figures on YouTube. I have put clear kind of display stands behind some of the shelves, just to kind of raise figures up, just so that everything can be seen, like the TARDISes are raised. It took a while to A, take every figure out, and B, put every figure back in, but I'm so happy with it, and it's everything I've always wanted from displaying my Doctor Who figures that I've never really had before. Then on top of it, we've got Marvel stuff, Marvel Select, Marvel Gallery, I think those PVC busts are called. Yeah, so I got like the Sam Wilson and Captain America Sam Wilson and Doctor Strange one last year. These have now started to appear in B&M for like 20 quid a piece, and I think that's a great deal for what they are. So they go up there. I did toy initially with just keeping that solely Doctor Who like on top, but I thought, well, don't really have another place for those to go. I think they look nice. It definitely brings a lot of colour into the room. So yeah, the Marvel kind of bigger statues are up there. Then we're here, the media shelves as I call them. So this shelf here, we've got the Doctor Who collection, very, very much stripped down, and I'll explain why in a bit. But yes, so we've got the Doctor Who Blu-ray range here, more Doctor Who stuff here with the spin-offs and the Big Finish stuff, and these gorgeous Big Chief figures. Down to the Raimi Spider-Man shrine, finally got a nice dedicated shelf of its own instead of being sprawled out a little bit. And then we go into my Blu-ray collection, or most of it anyway. So we start off with boutique labels down there, and then we go into them alphabetically, which carries on to this shelf here. And in front of all the Blu-rays, I've put like movie-related figures and memorabilia, like the Nightmare Before Christmas statues, and some of the NECA figures that aren't horror-related. And again, I'm really happy with it. It's a big feature of the room. Again, I've always wanted a proper shelf for me to display my Blu-rays. Never really had it before. I mean, I always have, but they've been hidden away and kind of piecemealed out across the collection. Now I've got most of them in one place, save for the stuff that, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff and the DC stuff, like the live action stuff on most of them. Those are downstairs because they're with my family's Blu-rays, and they are kind of stuff that I share with the family. Even though I buy most of them, as a family we kind of share them, so they're downstairs, but this is most of the other Blu-rays that I have, and I'm really happy with it. Space is definitely an issue. I definitely have a lot more Blu-rays than I thought I did. I thought, you know, these would be able to kind of handle it, but space is an issue, which is why I've kind of stacked box sets on top. But I've been managed to be quite economical with it, especially putting the bigger box sets like Bond 50 and the Hogwarts collection on top of there. I'm pretty happy with it. Again though, that kind of top bit is a little bit of a work in progress. There's stuff that I'm kind of not happy with 100%, but everything's up there for now that it needs to be, and then I can kind of tweak it later. I'm pretty happy with it overall, and certainly happy with how these shelves, you know, shaped up to be. I really like how I've got them displayed. Now you may be wondering, where are the Doctor Who DVDs? There's loads of Doctor Who Blu-rays here, but where have they gone? Well, outside my room, you may remember from the last kind of room tour that I did, which was quite a few years ago, I think it was 2020, I had a little kind of cubby hole, which was where I would keep just stuff that I had as a kid, really, just odds and ends. Now I've kind of gutted that and cleaned it all up and moved my old shelves from the old room into that space, which means that the Doctor Who DVDs can sit there comfortably, not kind of in this main display collection room thing. Because I never wanted to get rid of the Doctor Who DVDs. This is the thing, I'm upgrading to the Blu-rays now with the collection range coming out, and that's great and I love them and amazing. And I couldn't really afford to keep all of the DVDs still here too, because I needed space for the Raimi Spider-Man stuff and just the rest of the Blu-rays. But I didn't want to box them up, because if you've been watching this channel for the last 10 years, you'll know that those classic DVDs, that classic DVD range, was a big part of my video output on YouTube. It pretty much defined my teenage years, was collecting those DVDs and finally getting the last one and having this big display. So I didn't want to get rid of them because they're part of me as a Doctor Who fan. And so having that little space there to have them all on display still, just not in the main room, it just worked an absolute treat. That's also where I've put my Doctor Who books and the annuals. It's a little bit cluttered, but ultimately I really like how it looks, and I'm glad to have all of the Doctor Who stuff in one place there with the main Blu-rays that I'm going to be getting off the shelf a lot and watching, you know, with the classic box sets, the animations, and then all the new series steelbooks. That goes in here because that's what I'm going to be using the most, and the other stuff like collectibles and display pieces, it's nice that they're still on display. So I'm really happy with that solution. So then moving on to the back wall there, we've got my Star Wars / Marvel shelf. So we've got Star Wars Black Series on the top, and then going into the Marvel Funko Pops at the bottom half. And that kind of works well because the shelf is kind of segmented that way. I've got to be honest, when I kind of took everything down and put everything in a box, I did think the Star Wars Black Series, if I was going to sell anything, it maybe would be those, because they never had a home. They were just like kind of chucked at the bottom of the old cube shelf where all the Doctor Who figures used to be. So I was always like, okay, if these can't fit in there, these are going to have to go. Luckily, these shelves kind of fit them really well, and they don't look too cluttered on the top. I always thought I had more, but actually I have kind of the right amount for that shelf, and I'm really happy with that. It's also enabled me to deal with the Funko Pop situation. What I had before was this big, like, old kind of passed down from my granddad, I think, display cabinet that was kind of encased in glass, which was fine and worked great for the Funko Pops, but the problem was that wasn't going to be carrying over because it was falling apart, and it was just, it was in a state of disrepair, and it just didn't fit with the aesthetic of the room. So I was a bit like, what am I going to do with all these Funko Pops? So I've put some of them in front of the Blu-rays here, which is just kind of adds to that movie shelf vibe. But the Star Wars and Marvel ones, this shelf works pretty well, I think, because the space in the kind of shelves themselves aren't big enough to really fit main, like, 6-inch figures in there, so they work brilliantly for the Funko Pops. People really rag on Funko Pops these days, and I'm not as big into them as I was, but I still like them on display, so it's nice to have a home for them. And then we go on to the full Marvel shelf. Here, this is definitely one I'm adding more to as time goes by, specifically those middle shelves. I want to get more Funko Pops and more like little Marvel figures to stick in there and just fill those out a bit. But the kind of top half and the bottom half, that's where my Marvel Legends have gone, and also you can see a bit of Marvel Select there. So Marvel Select is on the top, and then there's the Marvel Select Venom and Black Cat on the bottom left. But the rest of it is all Marvel Legends stuff. And again, I'm really happy with how they look. They're very, very colourful. Maybe a little bit cluttered, maybe a little bit crammed in, but certainly better than what they were before, where, again, those shelves that I had them on, the wooden ones, kind of went back so far, and the ones at the back were just in shadow, and you couldn't see them. So now that they're like that, I'm really happy with them. And yeah, and it gives me more kind of room to play with to add more to. And then, like I said, I just got to fill the gaps in the middle, really, with smaller figures and accessories. That does look a little bit incomplete for now, but it's going well, and I just kind of need to buy more, essentially, which I did not think I'd be in a position to say that. For me, it was always I need to buy less. Then, the NECA horror figures. So, the previous display I had was one of my favourite parts of the old room, because it was just so striking, and it's so kind of dynamic with how I had them posed, and I'm pleased to say they transferred really well to this big kind of shelf that we have here. I really like the effect of having all the alternate heads and accessories that came with them, filling those little gaps. Again, I want to get more like Funko Pops to like fill those gaps. Like I want to get Freddy, Michael, Jason Funko, which would be really nice to fill them there. So specifically the middle ones look a little bit empty, but for the most part that shelf has come together really well, and I think the NECA figures look perfect there, and I haven't had any issues with them falling over or anything like that. They've kind of all slotted in perfectly. And then on the top we've got like Dawn of the Dead and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the two big Second Sight box sets that they've come out with. They look really good up there, I think, with the horror stuff. Got a few Gremlins up top because I love the Gremlins, and they're horror adjacent. I consider Gremlins like a comedy horror film, so they're there. And of course the Lament configuration from Hellraiser is there too, so that looks very, very nice. And then just beyond that is the DC shelf with DC Funko Pops, DC figures. They've got the Arkham figures there. Recent addition to the collection is Batman in his surf shorts from that episode of the 60s show, which I absolutely love. And then up top we've got a big Harley Quinn display, because I'm a big fan of Harley Quinn as a character. She's one of my favourite DC characters, one of my favourite comic book characters, I think, and so I've got a nice little Harley display there. Plus the Suicide Squad figures, which I thought were really awesome, and I'm really sad they never continued that range with like Ratcatcher or the Thinker or anything like that. They only ever did those figures, but they look really good up there, so I'm happy to have them there. Then beneath that we have the TV and the entertainment unit, which I was very, very happy with too. So I think that's pretty much it for the room. As I said before, the little cubby hole kind of got done up, and I've put more of the collection in there, which is nice because I've gained that extra space, and I've also gained another shelf in the kind of spare room of the house as well. And that's where I've put my DVDs, because initially the DVDs were kind of here, and when I say DVDs I mean like sitcom DVDs like Royal Family, Father Ted, stuff like that, and dramas like Buffy and Angel and Primeval and stuff like that. Stuff that I would really like to have had on display here, and they were for a little bit, but then I thought, actually, you know what, I can kind of move them to another shelf and gain more space for the graphic novels and the Blu-rays and stuff. Ultimately, I'm more of a Blu-ray collector and 4K collector these days. DVDs I will buy when kind of that's the best available version of a show or a film, or if it's a really cool collector's edition and stuff like that, but ultimately what's on display is Blu-ray and 4K, so the DVDs can go there, they're there when I need them. So I hope you enjoyed this little whistle-stop tour through my new room. I'm really happy with it. I really like it. Feels much more like a living space. What it was before was very much like things stacked on top of each other and just things crammed every which way, which was fine. but ultimately it wasn't conducive to actually living in that bedroom and kind of being in that bedroom as a space. And so what I've got now gives me a lot more space to kind of roam around the room properly and actually use it as a bedroom, but also just to display everything properly. Things have got a home now that never had a home before. It's a much brighter room than it was. I feel like I've got more space too. It's all worked out really well, and it took a long time to do, from kind of gutting everything and taking everything down, boxing everything up. It was a real kind of like, Jesus, this is a mammoth task ahead of me. But it all worked out really, really well, and like I said, I could not be happy with the results. I'm so happy to be in this room now. Hopefully this means more regular videos too, because this space I really like that I've got kind of set up to record. So if you've enjoyed looking through my updated room tour / collection, I still don't quite know how to define this, but if you've enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you on my next one. Take care now.